David Ghantt was an ordinary poor man, but he spent 16 hours a day surrounded by money, though his own pocket was always empty. He was actually the supervisor of an armed car for a security firm called Loomis Fargo. His job was to transfer millions of dollars between banks. He guarded this money all day long, but his own salary was barely $8 per hour. How long could he keep suffocating his dreams under the heavy blanket of honesty? One day, fed up with this honest life, David thought about doing something wrong. This is the interesting story of the 1997 Loomis Fargo Bank heist, in which an ordinary man forced the FBI to launch an international manhunt. This very story became the basis for the 2016 Hollywood movie Masterminds. Amazingly, David Ghantt himself appeared in the film about his own story, but unfortunately he didn't receive any payment for it. Welcome once again to Gen TV's videos. Viewers, David Ghantt was a retired Gulf War soldier. He had defended his country, and now he was a vault supervisor at an armored car company called Loomis Fargo. That meant money in his hands, empty pockets, and the burden of family responsibilities on his shoulders. He worked 75 to 80 hours a week, but in return, he earned just $8.50 per hour. David Ghantt was tired of his routine. Loneliness and the frustration of not achieving anything big were eating him up from the inside. These were the circumstances that created a strange restlessness in David's heart, and eventually he began having wrong thoughts. As soon as the thought of dishonesty crossed David's mind, the devil opened up a new path for him, and that path's name was Kelly Campbell. Kelly also worked at Loomis Fargo. She was a sharp, bold, and mysterious woman. During her job there, she somehow became friends with David, and they often met after office hours. Their friendship was so deep that even after Kelly quit her job, they continued to meet. One day, Kelly introduced David to her friend Steve Chambers. Steve was a petty criminal who always dreamed of making quick money. When Steve learned that David was the supervisor of an armored vehicle at Loomis Fargo, a cunning idea popped into his head: the idea to steal money. For this idea to succeed, David needed to join them. So Steve and Kelly began trying to persuade him. David Ghantt, whose intentions were already faltering, found Steve's idea like giving a push to a falling wall. At first, David was very scared because he had never done anything illegal in his life. But Steve's approach convinced him to slip. He painted dreams of a luxurious and comfortable life for David. David's frustration, Kelly's support, and Steve's greed all combined to push David to a point of no return. Then the planning of this master plan began. Since Steve himself was a petty criminal, Kelly had no experience, and David's expertise was negligible. Their plan was something that would make a professional thief laugh. The plan was simple. On the night of October 4th, 1997, after duty, David would stay inside the vault, disable the security cameras, steal their cassettes, load the company van with cash, and run away. The plan was that after the theft, David would immediately flee to Mexico with $200,000, because at that time, you could only legally carry that amount across the border. The rest of the cash would remain with Steve Chambers, and later, when things cooled down, the money would be equally distributed among them. But there was a major flaw in the plan. David was taking such a huge risk and fleeing to Mexico with only $200,000. Why would Steve share the rest of the stolen money with him later? But David was blinded by the bandage of greed and never thought about it. Finally, that night arrived. On October 4th, 1997, at 6 p.m., David sent his trainee staff home. Now, he was alone. He went into the vault and, as planned, disabled 2 security cameras and took out their cassette. But by mistake, he forgot to turn off the third camera hidden in a corner of the vault. This third camera recorded every moment of the Loomis Fargo robbery for the next several hours. David didn't even know that he was committing the second largest heist in American history. He loaded $17.3 million into the van. The next morning, when employees arrived, the vault keys were missing. Watching the CCTV footage turned all suspicions into certainty. The footage showed David dancing and repeatedly messaging someone on his pager. This proved he wasn't alone in the crime. The FBI launched a manhunt, issued ads, and announced a $500,000 reward. Finally, a call from a neighbor raised suspicion about Steve Chambers and his wife Michelle. They had suddenly bought a big house, a BMW, and expensive items. The FBI tapped their phone and learned from a call that they were planning to have David killed in Mexico. In March 1998, David was arrested from Mexico. The next day, Steve, Michelle, and Kelly were also caught. The FBI recovered 88% of the stolen money. Steve was sentenced to 11 years, and David received a 7-year sentence. In 2016, the movie Masterminds was made based on this story. David was was hired as a consultant for the film, but wasn't paid any salary. Even today, David lives in Jacksonville, Florida, with his wife and children, working as a construction worker. On social media, he shares his story to help others learn from his mistakes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. See you in the next one.